Hey everybody, welcome to finally another Prometheus and the ecosystem community call. It's been a while, it's been 4 months, I think, but super excited to be back. We had quite some updates, so I think it turned out nicely to skip a few of these meetings in between and kind of batch updates together. So we'll go through all of these. And I think going forward, this call will happen quarterly. So that means September, and then I think I wrote it down, September, December, March, and June will be the dates. And I think that kind of fits nicely because December still, like between October and November, and then December, there will be some updates. Then most people will be on winter holidays, and then coming back, there needs to be some time. Then March, there will be 2 months of work getting done. So we'll have some updates. And then I think June is right before the summer break again for most people. So kind of, I think the schedule kind of fits nicely now. Also, because of that, the August one was canceled again. And now we're on that schedule. I think that's overall a pretty good one. Let me know if there's anything you want to discuss about that. But I think that kind of makes sense going forward. And then, yes, I think, let me instantly share my screen, make this slightly bigger, because the first announcement is that we are finally going to have an in-person PromCon again, which will happen in November in Munich. And you can find all the details on PromCon EU. It is going to be in a different venue than we previously had it. So this is going to happen at Kongresshalle, at the Kongresshalle in Munich, which is right where Oktoberfest is happening, apparently. And I think there are some pictures. Yeah, here, the background picture, you can see it's like a proper big venue. Lots of people will fit in. I don't know the exact number, maybe it's in the text. But I assume it's like 400, 500 people at least. So at least twice the amount of people that we previously had at PromCons. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I think the CFP already closed last week. Anyone know if this was extended? I haven't heard anything that it was extended.
It is not officially extended, but the form is still open, and I don't think we've already done the selection. So,
all right, yeah. So if you dare to try, you can sneak in a last-minute proposal for PromCon. But it's probably, if you're watching a recording of this, it's going to be closed. And you can instead go to register, and then hopefully by that time the registration will be open, so everybody can get tickets. And I suspect they will be gone quite fast, but we should have at least twice the amount of tickets available compared to previous years. So that's good to see. I hope it works out a bit better in terms of getting people to attend. Then the second thing I haven't opened in my browser yet is the announcement of the Prometheus certified associate. I think this was already announced at KubeCon in where was it? In Valencia in May. But since we had the previous community update in May, when it wasn't announced, I think, because it was like 2 weeks later, I want to point this out. So basically, similar to what you know from the certified Kubernetes administrator training or certification, I should say, you can get a similar thing for Prometheus now. And it kind of like makes sure you have like all the foundational knowledge of using observability, of using Prometheus, and kind of knowing what metrics are, how to use them, kind of like a proper foundation of kind of the ecosystem of Prometheus. So yeah, if that's something you are interested in, your company is interested in, then yeah, I think you should be able to find it in a search engine looking for the Prometheus Certified Associate exam. Anything to add from Prometheus team members on that?
So actually, like the exam is only out for a week. So in May it was the beta, and there will be an official press release this week or next week about it from the CNCF.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So, but yeah, I think this is kind of like happening now. So I think you can already enroll today, and then you can get your certified Prometheus certificates, which will be pretty cool. Yeah. Then going forward, we had 3 releases since the last community call. And now like all my tabs are in the wrong order. So the first one was version 2.36, released at the end of May. And what we had, probably the most user impacting changes were adding Ionos cloud integration and the Vultr integration. And then, as you can see, lots of small improvements, bug fixes, and so on. So if you are on any of these clouds, then make sure you're at least using 2.36. Then that's the wrong one, 2.37. This is kind of an interesting one. It is the first one. I think Julian kind of shepherded this and kind of pushed for this. It is the first release ever that now comes with a long-term support. So in this chart, you can nicely see what that means. Usually we do bug fixes and security patches for the last version, and that's like every 6 weeks. I think there were instances where we even backported them on kind of like a basis. If somebody needed it, they backported it to an older version, but this is like officially supported, and we will do all the due diligence to backport things and security fixes to this version until the end of January next year. So you can have a bit more stability, and you can be sure that there will be bug fixes and security updates for this version. So that's, I think, a first for Prometheus. I don't know, anything to add on that, Julian?
No, I think it's even more important because in the coming months we will have major refactoring in the code and major new features in the code that might make the minor releases more interesting, let's say. So the LTS is really a good candidate for people who are looking for stability. I'm thinking about stuff like ingesting old samples, that kind of things might change quite some TSDB code, and it might bring some new bugs. So if you really want bug-free Prometheus, well, at least the best as we can, just pick the LTS version. We will issue the first bug fix for the LTS soon. There is not many bugs that have been fixed, but we will at least update the underlying Golang, which has undergone some security fixes.
Awesome. Yeah, makes sense. And then on top of that, I think there were like 2 things I want to point out for users. So first of all, if you run on OpenBSD, there's an issue there, and that's why until that's fixed, Prometheus won't be publishing any more releases for OpenBSD. So yeah, I don't know how many users this will impact. And then I think the other one is a new service discovery for Nomad built-in service discovery. So if you're running on Nomad, this will be interesting as well. And yeah, again, many bug fixes, security fixes, etc. And then the latest release from 22 days ago, that one, I think overall also, again, security and performance improvements, etc. And then the most important one, I think, for users is the new API to format queries, or more precisely, it is also in the UI. So I can actually, let me run a Prometheus here. I can spell that correctly. Prometheus. There we go. So as you all know, you can write your queries, and it works nicely. But if they become slightly more complex, where you then maybe like do something like this, and then have a kind of, I don't know, like some code is like 500 or whatever. You might want to start formatting them a bit more nicely. And now there's this format button in the latest Prometheus version, which will then nicely format things. So especially for more complex queries, I guess that is important, right? So if we put the job here, now you can see it like properly formats this and kind of like puts the proper indentations, so you can see which operators are being used, dividing which time series basically, etc. So I think like for small queries is fine, but if you have like proper big queries, I don't know if I can, yeah, like whatever, this one kind of makes it a whole different beast out of writing PromQL and then especially reading them back if you haven't looked at the query before. So I think that's really cool. Kudos to Julius and the other contributors who worked on this. And yeah, more bug fixes as well. So always stay up to date with the latest version if you're into that.
It was contributed by Arcushan from Timescale.
Perfect. Yes, I wasn't sure who it was, so yeah, thank you for that contribution. I think it's pretty awesome. I hope to see it in more of the other projects as well, like Thanos, Cortex, Mimir, etc. So that would be great. Be added to PromTool. I'm not sure.
So yes, it will be added to PromTool, and also you will, when you will format PromTools, you will be able to format your rule files, and inside the rule files, you will also get the formatted query.
That's amazing. That's super cool. Yeah, but makes sense to just push it to all the different places where PromQL is happening. Yeah, awesome. I think that's it for updates on Prometheus releases. There were no Alert Manager releases since May, and also no Node Exporter releases, and then probably a lot of like exporter releases, but there are too many to cover. So go and look at those on their own if you want to. And then Prometheus itself is doing quite a big change in CI. Julian, do you want to talk us through that?
Yes, so CNCF asked us to move away from Circle CI to GitHub Action because it's easier for them, and because Prometheus was already using partly GitHub Action for some part of the workflows, like the linting. We have done the move on the main Prometheus repository yesterday to move to GitHub Action. The exporters will follow. The main advantage is for the users and the contributors that they directly can cancel or restart the actions if they want to, because in Circle CI you don't have really access to that kind of comments if you are not repository maintainer, but GitHub Action should give users a lot more flexibility. We also have machines which should be a bit slightly more powerful than on Circle CI, but I have not checked the numbers yet about that. But that's the new way of working now. We will work with those new GitHub Action and you see how it works.
Cool. Yeah, I wasn't even aware that there are like own machines that are sponsored by CNCF, I assume, running the
No, it is just that CNCF has agreements with GitHub, I think.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense as well. But that's pretty cool.
GitHub is probably sponsoring or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, hopefully CI will be faster then. It's always good. Any questions about any of these things? We can also push Q&A to the end, but if there are questions already. Okay, if there are any, we can still do a Q&A at the end. Vic raised their hand.
One question regarding the LTS releases. So they remove explicitly some features, experimental features that are present in other releases. So does that mean that there's a 1.5 month slot where such releases are not, such features are not available?
No, we do not remove them. We just do not support them. Like, if there is a bug in a very experimental release, we do not guarantee that we will fix the bug in the LTS version. But the version is still present, you can still use it, and we still work on it, but just like we do not guarantee that we will backport all the bug fixes for the duration of the LTS.
Oh, okay, so I guess I misunderstood the phrasing in the description. Thank you.
All right, Peter, you have a question.
I have missed how long the LTS the support window will be.
So for now, we say that it will last at least 6 months, and in December we will take the decision to extend that to 1 year or just keep it 6 months. We will see the adoption, we will see how hard it is to maintain the code, but we start with 6 months, which is like, I think, the time for 5 Prometheus releases.
Thank you.
Right. Then let's move on to the ecosystem updates. First on the list is Cortex. People.
Yeah, I can speak
perfect.
to that. Yeah, so in July we had I'm a maintainer of Cortex, living maintainer of Cortex, but bear with me. So we had the release on July for Cortex 1.13, which came out with a lot of bug fixes, and the most weighted feature request was the experimental support for parallel compaction in the compactor, something that got implemented as experimental. Yeah, and we have also been working on removing the chunks storage from Cortex. That is already merged, but will be released in 14. Which should come out soon. So we're currently testing it, but yeah, there's some other fixes that we've been working on and things and small features like that. But yeah, that's the main chunk of it. Yeah, that's it for me. Any questions? Okay, that's it.
Perfect. Yeah, no, thank you. Good stuff. It's good to see. Next on the list is Mimir.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So our current release of Mimir is 2.2, and that has been out for a while. It was interesting that it has the initial support for out-of-order ingestion that Ganesh and Jesus worked on, and now they work on upstreaming that work to Prometheus. So hopefully that will be able to be in Prometheus soon as well. We are currently working on Mimir 2.3 release. There will be a short delay. We just found a little problem yesterday. But yeah, it will feature the native OpenTelemetry ingestion contributed by Gotham. And there is also some initial work on parallelizing instant queries that use like the ranges in them so that we can split those and parallelize the subqueries. There is also simplified configuration, a lot of improvements in Helm, and yeah, other bug fixes and performance improvements.
Okay. Any questions on that? Seems like there are no questions. Looking forward to trying out the OpenTelemetry ingestion support myself. Yeah, good stuff. Pretty cool. For Thanos, we don't really have a proper official update, but someone from the team wrote a couple of bullet points, so I'm going to read them. I'm not super active in Thanos these days, so I don't have context, sadly, but I can say that again, there's also active development happening in Thanos for query sharding, for consistent hashing in the Thanos receiver, so it's a bit more predictable in terms of where the data is going to go when ingesting into Thanos receivers. We have remote write, and then there is series and request limits for individual tenants in a Thanos cluster, almost in the Thanos cluster. So that's really good. And there's also development happening to have active query tracking support in queries. So also lots of things happening. I'm not sure what's been released. I didn't have the time to go through the release notes of Thanos, sadly, but just wanted to mention there's lots of stuff happening as well. Yeah, so I think that's pretty great. Go ahead, Peter.
I just want to ask about active query tracking support. Is it basically logging of the query after crash?
As I said, I don't know.
Okay.
I would need to look into this. I'm kind of like here and there following Thanos right now and reviewing things, but like I'm pretty heads down into like the profiling stuff.
I think that's what the feature is about in Prometheus, and we have something similar in Mimir. So I guess it's the same.
I suppose, but I can't say it with 100% confidence, so I'm not going to comment on that right now. Very politician answer, but yeah. We would need to look into it. I'm sure you can find it on GitHub. And Brian wants to give us an update on a really, really interesting change in Prometheus. I looked at this as well before.
Yeah, well, mostly for this meeting, I think the heads up, because this is a change to the labels data structure in Prometheus. And it looks like this gives us about a 15% memory saving, which is worth having if for any of us who have the sort of 100 gigabyte Prometheus or even a 10 gigabyte Prometheus. Getting 15% back is desirable, but the knock-on effects are. Yeah, basically, there's a lot of code out there. There's like 1,000 lines in Prometheus I had to fix that assume they know what a label looks like or a label data structure. And there's another 1,000 lines in Thanos, another 1,000 lines in Cortex, another 1,000 lines in Mimir. And right now, I'm not planning to fix all of them. So that's the main reason why this is sitting as a draft. I mean, it appears to work fine inside Prometheus. My current status is I'm trying to figure out how to get Mimir to work because I'm employed to do that. Yeah, that's my announcement for this meeting for the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a proper good update. I think a good heads up. I looked at this as well. Like there are more projects that use this code, right? So even out of scope that you mentioned. So this will be having quite an impact. So I think like just so people are aware, like previously we had the label struct was composed of another label struct which had name and value as string field. And now this will be just the label struct and having a string with the data where all the labels are concatenated into one string, right? Is that correct? I think that's the underlying most important part of this change.
Well, yeah, it's just so currently there's like labels.labels, which is a slice, and then each element within that is a label.label, which is a pair of strings, and each one of those is a string. And all of that is exported, and there's a lot of code that assumes they can just write that struct out and it's going to work. So if we make any change whatsoever, I mean, yes, you described the change that I've proposed, but I certainly think this is not the best possible data structure. It's one that I've implemented that gives us a big saving, but any change to that data structure has the same effect of requiring 1,000 lines of editing downstream. So putting a lot of that behind abstractions, I think is worth doing, and that's what I tried to do in Prometheus. So I think I should say from a software engineering point of view, it's worth making that change. Most places, it's worth making that change anyway. There might be some places where the performance is so sensitive that the abstraction makes a big difference, and I worked around all of those in Prometheus itself. But that's the kind of the hard part. There's the there's the kind of simple part, which is that we should not really have that much code depending on a very precise data structure definition. And then the hard part, which is exactly how do you change it.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah, I just looked at this. Oh, this is the change in the struct, etc. But now that you say like, yeah, we shouldn't depend on that very concrete implementation, and kind of like, yeah, I applaud you for kind of pushing through this, because I think that just leaves everything a bit more cleaned up and easier to maintain in the long run again, right? So even without the underlying changes, that makes a ton of sense. But the benchmarks still look pretty promising and make me a bit excited. So yeah.
I also want to add that now we have moved to, well, I have opened the pull request today to move to Go 1.19 with Go 1.18 as minimal. So I know, Brian, that you had some optimizations regarding generics. Now we can have generics in the Prometheus code base once the pull request is merged. So the reason why we don't do it before is that we know that we have Cortex, Mimir, a lot of people depending on our code, and we like to support the 2 last Go releases. So now we have Go 1.19, so we should be able to have more optimizations in that regard if that's needed.
Very cool. Yeah, looking good for the future, making progress. Let's see how quick the ecosystem can follow up. I guess that's the biggest kind of like bulk of work at this point, right? But yeah, it's nice that Prometheus is pushing through and kind of moving ahead. I don't know. I think that's the end of the agenda. I very much appreciate that we can even get like some development focused updates at the end. Are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, Peter has his hand up.
Yes, sorry.
I was just curious if you have any estimate when this may land in the Prometheus.
Which one? The one I was talking about?
Yeah, the labels optimization.
Well, I mean, selfishly, I want to get Mimir working well. I don't. And also, there's like conferences and things coming up. If I would put it like 3 months away or something like that for if I carry on doing this on my own. But obviously the code's there. It could be, I don't control Prometheus. It could get merged into Prometheus tomorrow. But in terms of the rate of progress I'm making, I would put it more like 3 months.
Thank you.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think for me, looking at this PR, I thought it was like in progress since it's a draft PR. So I didn't even like start making changes in Parka, for example, and that also makes heavy use of this. But now that you told me, like, I'm going to look at the changes necessary in Parka as well. I'm just curious, with this being a draft, we cannot yet run the Prometheus benchmarks over a longer duration in the upstream project, right? So I think that would be interesting to see, like with PromBench. Or is that already?
I don't know anything about, much about PromBench.
Yeah, we can.
That does it. Ah, okay. Yeah, I should just scroll down. Okay, never mind. So there are the PromBench comments. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna look into these as well. Good stuff. All right. Any questions on anything? Open forum. No questions whatsoever. I see smiling faces. All right. Then if nobody else has any questions, the next time we will meet for this call or update would be December 7th, I guess, if my math checks out. So until then, I hope to see a few people at conferences, see many of you at PromCon specifically. That would be amazing. And yeah, take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in December.
Bye.
Bye-bye.